All right, welcome into the BGN Radio Instant Reaction Show, and we appreciate you joining us. Myself, Jess, Rachel here, the three of us, and you, of course, in the chat. And just looking at what happened today, we remind you, as we'll be here throughout, answering and responding to questions, comments, concerns, what you have. Smash away, hit that thumbs up button, and make sure you're subscribed here to what we're doing on channel. It's just an up and down game, to say the least, and a lot to take away by all means from another Eagles loss. And at times you felt like it was there, a victory was there, and at other times you felt reminded maybe at the talent gap between the Chiefs and the Eagles. But one thing, as we'll talk with Jess and you, and Rachel will come here with a couple of tweets in a second, but one thing that is consistent week in and week out, that I do believe in a season of patience and a season of growth, especially looking at young players like Jalen Hurts to young coaches like Nick Sirianni. If there is one thing that we can point to week that I think is justifiably insane, and it's driving all of us collectively mentally insane with all of the energy we put into showing up and rooting for this football team, are the penalties. My goodness, league leading with that. So, Jess, it was an up and down game. I guess there were some goods, there were some positives that we could take away. This wasn't like, I think, last week where we were struggling to find some positives outside of maybe one or two growing pains in the offense. This was an up and down game, I think, to take away from. But I hate to start with a negative. I just don't know how to get around the fact that this team is league leading in penalties. And you brought up a point last week about their defense and how frustrating it was, because it's a veteran unit that should be able to control mistakes more than this offense. I don't know what to even make anymore about how bad the penalties are.
I mean, I would love to know if the Eagles defense even was present today at all, because they might as well not have even been there. Every time something happens, every time you see a flag thrown, you look up and Derek Barnett's laying on the ground next to whoever the quarterback is. And, you know, I feel the exact same way that I did last week. I mean, you look at the mistakes that were made by this team. And again, I can make my peace with certain mistakes from the offense. But I look at this game, and you look at the fact that they had 3 touchdowns called back with penalties. They had 3 touchdowns that they left on the field. And then you realize that they could have gone shot for shot here with the Kansas City Chiefs had the defense kept them in it once or twice. And it's little things like you finally get them in a 3rd and long situation, and you jump off sides, and all of a sudden it's a 3rd and 1, and that's almost guaranteed at this point for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, it's just the little things that I can be okay with an up and down season and up and down games and being able to take away the positive things that the Eagles are doing. But when they're making dumb mistakes week in, week out, and it's things that should be teaching points and not happening repeatedly, that's when it gets unbelievably infuriating. Personally, Jonathan Gannon is in way over his head as an NFL defensive coordinator. I just don't think that where he is in his career currently, he's cut out for this job. Yeah. The Eagles gave up 40-plus points one time under Jim Schwartz in 86 games. One time.
It's a hell of a stat. Yeah.
Twice in 4 games under Jonathan Gannon.
Back to back.
Not great.
It's brutal. No, it's brutal.
Not great.
And you know, here's the thing. You're not dealing with a significant lack of talent, right? Now, we can no longer make fun of the Jets because they get a win today. But, you know, like maybe the Texans in that regard, where you can see some effort on the field, but my goodness, the lack of talent or the gap in talent for their unit versus many offenses, if not all, you're never going to win that battle. Gannon has talent. And I know we talked about Brandon Graham's injury and being more than just a body on the field, but a presence on the field and in the locker room is gone. The reality is that this defense is not, as you said, and it's perfect here, they're not 40-plus per game 2 weeks in a row bad. Like there is a major disconnect happening between coaching And look, let's blame players as well, but there's a
yeah.
major disconnect that's happening between preparation and execution.
Sure.
Huge.
While I understand that losing a guy like Brandon Graham, and we talked about this last week, losing a guy like Brandon Graham is a huge blow for this defense on and off the field. He is their emotional leader. He is their leader on the field. He is their energy. And while I understand that, yes, it is a huge, it's probably the worst loss for this defense. And the fact that they are still going out there, like, I get it's a huge loss. It's not what they have put out there the last 2 weeks of a loss. Right. It's not. Because everyone also, at the same time of saying, yes, Derek Barnett is the heart and soul of Brandon Graham is the heart and soul of this defense.
Definitely not Derek Barnett.
Let me correct myself here. As everyone continues to say that, there's also, a large portion that's, oh, well, when's he going to start to decline? When is he this? When is he that? He's on the back end of his career, blah, blah. Okay, but so we can't have it both ways here. I get it's a loss, but my God, you need to pull it together a little bit in some capacity because this is bad.
How much do we look at this game? And I'm trying to balance just expectations for this one specific game versus where we are as a whole. And I don't want it to sound like, oh, well, the Chiefs defense is shit, but they're not good. And I credit the fact that the Eagles were able, because it's hard in the NFL, even if you have an advantage, to take advantage of that consistently. So At some point, we credit the fact that the Eagles offense, especially in spite of their mistakes, self-inflicted and just bad penalties, were able to take advantage more often, I think, than not, even though they had to settle for penalties. And look, that's the difference against the Chiefs. You settle for penalties, you know that you're going to be behind the 8 ball. But back to Gannon really quick, before we look at the offense and Hurts and Sirianni and maybe some questions about that, and really how many highlighters can Nick Sirianni fit in his visor? I think that's going to be something we have to look at moving forward. Jess, he's up to 2.
We need an over-under. We need to start taking bets on how many highlighters are going to make it on the hat by the end of the season.
I mean, seriously. But back to Gannon, right? Because I'm with you. I think I'm lockstep in your frustrations with the defensive unit, the fact that they have veteran presence, and it just looks like at times, especially from Atlanta. I mean, we kill the offense for being night and day different from where they were in Atlanta. Same thing with the defense. How much in just a small little micro do you look at it and say, you know what? Normally, I'd be frustrated that you hold the team to a 3rd and long situation, you get bailed out by a penalty. But some of those plays, it's Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill. There aren't many teams in the NFL that are going to be able to slow something like that down.
I think that there are some plays that you look at Patrick Mahomes make. There were a couple balls that he put in there that you're just like, no one else does that. It doesn't matter how good a defense is on the other side. No one fits that in there, right? There are a couple that you look at and you go, okay, yeah, that one's just Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes. These guys being on the same page, a really great offense. But I thought that today there were a lot less of those that I saw than it was just stupidity left and right and the inability to slow this offense down. I mean, Patrick Mahomes didn't throw the ball many times today. They had more rushing attempts than they did passes. They had 32 rushing attempts, and Patrick Mahomes only threw the ball 30 times. I say only. It's only because the Eagles threw the ball 50 times, but that's neither here nor there. We'll get there. But
we will.
The balanced attack that they had, it wasn't, he wasn't throwing for 350 yards. Yeah, he had 5 touchdowns, but he wasn't putting on this electric show from the pocket. He wasn't. It was just the Eagles not – it wasn't this amazing performance by Patrick Mahomes. It was – if you would have told me that Patrick Mahomes would have only thrown for, 200-some yards, I would have been like, oh, the Eagles can get this one easy. But it's just the stupidity and the lack of discipline and the fact that their defensive line is not – it doesn't show up to games. Their linebackers are horrific, and the corners look lost back there, and the safeties don't even get me started. It's just a mess.
Yeah. No, I think it's illustrated once again. And look, maybe we got spoiled because it was Mike Davis week 1, but my goodness, gashed again on the ground. 7.3 yards per carry for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who should not look that good by any means.
Remember when we had a run defense? Remember when the Eagles had a run defense? That was a fun time.
For like a week and a half. And I think part of it was because the Niners were like, they lost 6 guys in that game. So that fueled it as well.
And that's the thing. Like, you can say what you want about leaving some of these plays on the field, and you can say what you want about the touchdowns getting called back and missing Zach Ertz in the back of the end zone on that one, or not the red zone just being abysmal again. You can say what you want about that. Field goals are not going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but this defense is as bad as I can remember it being in my lifetime. It's bad.
Statement. Yeah, that's a statement. This is not Mahomes and Dak. I think this is more about the defense is susceptible now to anybody. I mean, think about it. It's not just these 2 guys, and Dak's playing out of his mind. I get it, but it's not these 2 guys more so than it's if you can run, which apparently anybody can do. If you can run on this team, then it's impossible to not throw on them. Like they've made their defense one-dimensional to where you can exploit it, because anybody apparently in back-to-back weeks, as we've seen, can gash them for significant yards per carry. And all the talk and as we look at the running game and what maybe was expected there from a bounce back with Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell looking somewhat impressive, but the reality is that you're going to be out. You're going to be out of games. You're going to be out of being able to run the ball if you can't stop running the ball. And that's just going to feed into this dog chasing its tail of frustrations of around and around we go. And it's crazy because it all comes back to doing one thing, which is stopping the run. But I don't care who it is. Like Hubbard comes in as a backup or whatever Fournette, Ronald Jones scenario you have with Tampa Bay, right down to the Giants with Barkley. Jess, if you can't stop anybody in the NFL on the ground, you're going to get beat. And it's going to look as bad as you just laid out, giving up points after points because teams are going to throw.
Right. I mean, the last time the Eagles defense looked this bad, there was an offensive line coach as the defensive coordinator. That's the last time the Eagles defense looked this bad. I mean, it's and that's why I get more frustrated with the defense, because it's guys that I don't have confidence are going to get any better, if that makes sense. Like at this point, this defense, the guys on the defensive line are what they are. That's who they are. That's what you're going to get from them. That's about it. Those linebackers, they are what they are. That's what you're going to get out of them. Those corners, they are what they are. That's what you're going to get out of them. We don't get anything else. When you look at the offense and you think, okay, Jalen Hurts can still improve. And now he was great today, by the way. That's not based on today, but just in general, he can still improve. Miles Sanders can still improve. Anything that these 3 young wide receivers do, they can still improve. And we've got some promise of some young guys on the offensive line, as we saw today. They were all out there. But there's things there that you're like, okay, frustrating, yes, but still have that hope and belief that they can improve. That doesn't exist on the defensive side of the ball. There are a bunch of veterans that cannot play football right now. I don't know what they're doing out there, but it's not football.
No,
it's awful. It's
brutal.
Awful.
No, and you mentioned it, and I'm curious because we bring in Rachel to always hopefully bring us some sort of positivity if there is any balance on Twitter. And look, you were down there today. I would imagine that there's going to be some sense of, and balance isn't always 50-50, right? It can be like walking a tightrope where you're like constantly going left and right in order to walk straight and keep your balance. So I understand it's probably going to be a little more volatile than not, but Jalen Hurts we'll talk about in depth here, and the offense. How can we not, though, at least give a nod to 4 of 5 guys who are thrown into a position that was supposed to be the anchor of success for this offense? And there were way more times than not, Jess, today, that it was easy to forget that the Eagles were starting 4 backups than they were starting 4 backups.
Yeah, there were a couple times in there where you watched some of these younger guys absolutely get blown off the line of scrimmage. But you're absolutely right. You forgot more often than not that this wasn't your core group of guys. And I think obviously having someone like Jason Kelce in there to at least bring that group together is very helpful.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely correct. They looked really good today. There were, again, some frustrating things here and there. But I think, some of those frustrating things are intertwined with a bigger picture than just a young offensive line or guys that aren't used to playing. But you're absolutely right. I thought that they did a really good job. Once I saw that Lane Johnson was out today, I was like, oh, let's all say a quick prayer for Jalen Hurts back there, because I was not confident, and I thought they did a really good job today, given what they were, and probably weren't necessarily all prepared to be in there today as much as they were. And I think that's also it just also shows you a little bit more how bad Kansas City's defense is, and to the point where the Eagles should have been able to score more points and keep this even a little bit closer than it actually was. But I will give that offensive line a ton of credit today, because they played their butts off.
So that's an interesting point to kind of jump off with the offense as a whole here, right? Do we look at this, and I am curious, what do you think the percentage would be for positive tweets that we would get after today? I know a lot of people are frustrated. I don't even know, what was the emotion like as you were leaving the stadium? Was there any type of self-therapy, like that Alonzo Mourning gif where you're just like, and then all of a sudden you kind of realize okay, you know what? It's shit's going to be okay for a second. What was the emotion or the feel as you were leaving the stadium today?
Well, so my favorite moment of today was right before the Kenneth Gainwell touchdown. The entire stadium started chanting "Run the ball," which was probably the funniest thing that I've ever witnessed happen. But it was loud and it was real. And then all of a sudden they ran the ball and scored. And people were like, imagine that. What a time. Which was really funny. But I mean, leaving it's hard to be positive because of the amount of frustration that goes along with it. And it's things like, again, you want to expect that there are positives to grow off of, and you want to try to keep yourself grounded, understanding that this is a year that is going to be filled with a lot of question marks and not really knowing what they're going to get.
Right.
But when you look at something like you've got, Jalen Hurts is one really bad pass of the day was when he missed Zach Ertz in the end zone in the first quarter. You look at that and you're like, that's one touchdown. Then you have another ball that hits Greg Ward directly in the hands that he needs to come down with. And you're like, and people are like, well, Jalen's got to throw a better ball. And it's like, okay, the ball wasn't perfect, but it also hit Greg Ward directly in the hands. They quite literally kept him on the roster because he can catch balls, and Travis Fulgham had less of a time catching balls in training camp. You are an NFL wide receiver, and your job is to catch the balls that are thrown to you. If they hit you directly in the hands, come down with them.
Yeah.
Catch them. You can make a play too. It doesn't always have to be an easy play for you. You can make it look easy, okay? Then there's the one to Zach Ertz. I understand that ball was high. Jalen Hurts also put it in a spot where that defender was not going to pick that ball off. Either Zach Ertz was coming down with it or no one was. And I'll guarantee you saw the way Zach Ertz walked off the field. He would tell you the same thing. That ball hit him in the hands. He should have come down with it. Was it a hard catch? Absolutely. Should he have made it? Yeah. Yep. So that's 3 touchdowns right there. And that's frustrating. Then you get the 3 touchdowns that are called back. And it's stupid things like Andre Dillard being downfield. But that also goes back to why is their screen game timing still so poor? They had 3 of those called last week, and it's all because the timing of their screen passes are terrible. They're not right. Why is that not being talked about in practice? Why is that not being fixed in practice? That's infuriating when you see it week after week. If it was just last week and they fixed that today, fine. No problems. But because it's happening week after week, that's when I start to have a problem. And then the other one with Devontae Smith stepping out of bounds first. Why was that not a teaching point week 2 after Jalen Reagor did it? Why are we still allowing that to happen? Why are we letting that be something that is an issue? That's 6 touchdowns. 6.
Yep.
That's 40 points.
Yeah. Against the defense that's more than happy to give you points. You don't even need to ask.
Without running the football.
Right.
All of these things, that's 6 touchdowns. All of those things without running the football. Can you imagine if they also ran the football? Oh my God.
That's the thing with Sirianni, I guess, that you could look at here. If 4 of those 6 touchdowns. Hell, if 3, right? And look, I'm not going to play the game as far as, Kansas City wouldn't get any more points, but you're in much better shape to flat out win that football game if you can only convert 3 of those 6 touchdowns. But to the point about without running the football, that's such a great Band-Aid if you're Sirianni, where you can kind of just like brush it off. Like, the hell are you talking about? I didn't run the football. We won the game. I put up 50 points in the air. Leave me the hell alone. Instead, it's the converse, right? Now it's like this glaring issue where it rears its ugly head once again, where we have to go back and ask ourselves, why is Miles Sanders being relegated out of football games again? And what is this relationship in the backfield with Gainwell and Sanders? And why is this relationship not being maximized? All these little things that open up because he wasn't able to convert in the air. And look, you mentioned teaching points. I agree. You can't, I don't think we can look at this team, and really the coaching staff, when I say we, not me and you, but I don't think they can look at this team and apply this whole, it's growing pains, there's a process, and then not teach, right? Like, I'm not a teacher, but I imagine that you can't just sit there and say, young man, young woman, to your student, that this is a teaching moment, and then just walk away, right? Like, you have to teach what the moment is.
This is the teaching point. And you're like,
right.
So, okay. Awesome.
Something.
Yeah. Like, I just, yeah. And again, like, I at least earlier today, when they first came out, you could see there was a game plan in place. They looked like they actually were offensively prepared for the game today, which was an improvement for the last 2 weeks. They had an identity today, which is something that I have noticed. And what has been frustrating me is that they don't know what they are. Today that they came out and they looked like they had somewhat of an identity, somewhat of a plan going into this game. The execution was not always there, but that also happens when you're asking a guy in his 8th NFL game to throw the ball 50 times. Why is Jalen Hurts throwing the ball 50 times? He almost threw for 400 yards today. He also led the team in rushing yards. I don't understand. Why is this happening? Why is this like this shouldn't be a thing? And this happened plenty before. And I told you, it goes back to everything I said last week. Fundamentally, within the organization, they are so unbelievably flawed in what they value and what kind of team they want to be. It's not a winning recipe. It's not a recipe to win games. A recipe to win games was when you had 3 dominant running backs and you could utilize all of them, and all 3 of them were contributing for 150 to 200 yards per game in addition to 200 yards in the air. That's a recipe for winning football. If you're not running the ball, you're not going to win in the NFL. It's that simple.
No,
I don't care if your quarterback's Patrick Mahomes. You don't run the ball, you're not winning in the NFL.
He was running the ball okay today. A couple of savvy little runs by him, especially on timing. You don't need to be Lamar Jackson in order to effectively move the ball down the field with your feet. And I'll just add this as we see Rachel, and we have a ton of tweets to get to. I think to your point, Jess, and this is assuming hopefully that they are moving on with Jalen Hurts, and the offseason is million miles away. So I'm not even getting to that point today. But if you are looking at Jalen Hurts' team building around him, I think you can look at what Baltimore is effectively healthy, of course, not now, with competent running backs behind a quarterback who can throw, but can also kill you on the ground. And your identity is running the ball, but having a quarterback who can make throws like both Lamar and Jalen can. And that becomes so difficult to stop. So that you're right, but that's fundamental. That's organizational. Right. You have to make a commitment to build that way instead of the opposite. That's all.
And I think that while I'm not comparing Jalen to Patrick Mahomes in any capacity, but I think you could even use Patrick Mahomes more as a model of what we would like Jalen Hurts to be, in terms of, you see what just a serviceable running back behind him can do with a decent offensive line, and how he's still able to make these throws, but then it opens it up for him on the ground as well. Like, I don't think Jalen Hurts is as dynamic of a runner as Lamar Jackson, but I think he could be the same runner, but a better runner than a Patrick Mahomes. Like, some of those plays where Patrick Mahomes just kind of dipped out around the corner there, I could see Jalen Hurts being way more effective in those situations, but if you don't have a run game, it's not going to work. And I was totally with you. It's completely fundamental. And you realize that with just the simple things of the answers to questions that you got last year and this year. This is my favorite example. I almost fell over when I heard it last week. In the post-game presser, when they asked Nick Sirianni last week, 3 rushes in the entire game, and they said, why didn't you run the football more? And he said, oh, well, we had a lot of RPOs, and we value those, and we think about those as run plays, but he just decided to throw the ball. You know who used to say that a lot? Doug Peterson.
Maybe that's coming from above?
That's an organizational problem. That is not a coaching problem.
Nope.
That is what the organization wants to be and is choosing to do. And it's 2 guys that aren't football guys that are like, oh, yeah, just call the RPOs run plays. Okay. All right, Jeff. All right, Howie. Go sit back in your offices and let the football people run the football crap. Please,
guys.
God.
Call the RSO, will you? I could see Jeffrey Lurie in the office not even getting it right. Not even getting it accurate. Just
what
call
are the 3
RSO.
Letters? The ABC?
Right.
And that's, I think, what makes me the most mad.
I'm curious. What's the temperature like on Twitter? How good? How bad? My guess is that we're going to have some balance, but it's probably going to be balance in extreme, more so than anything else.
Than last week. It's surprisingly a lot of optimism in the feed, in the the tweets and the comments. We have from Carlton Blade, closer than expected in the beginning, like up until the 4th, because then they kind of pulled away. But it wasn't a blowout like we thought it was going to be.
Right.
Some people expected not that bad. I think it's Jeff Daly said not that bad. This was a lot better than last week's performance. So I guess that's some optimism. Still a rebuild. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not mad. Patrick at 76 Eagles said, I'm not mad. Are you guys on the same page with that?
No, I'm mad.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are the positives.
but look, it's targeted anger. I think that what we've done here so far in this show is we've specifically targeted our anger, our frustration, our disappointment. This is not, the Eagles lost, they suck. This is, wait a second, there are specific issues with this football team that are going to stunt growth as a whole, where you look at it on both sides of the ball. And look, the easiest place to start, which we began, was the penalties, because those should be the most correctable. So I think, when you look at Jalen Hurts today, I don't think any of the 3 of us are mad, right, about Jalen Hurts and about the way he moved the football in the air as much as he threw.
I'm pissed that they didn't play better, because he played such a good game. I'm pissed that the rest of them didn't play well, because this would just be a lovely week for everyone if everyone else just got their you-know-what together.
Kenny Gainwell performed very nicely. He did.
Yeah, the 3 times they let him touch the ball.
You want to see him more, and that's in the comments.
Are we getting some more Gainwell love here?
We are.
We saw a little bit of Gainwell love.
There's some Gainwell love. There's some Jalen Hurts love too, which I appreciate, because usually in these situations it all falls on the quarterback. It's very anti-quarterback usually in this place.
Yeah. So it's nice to see a break. We see a lot of please fire Gannon. We see a lot of that. Penalties killed us. The refs screwed us. Some of
that
those
play was bad. That pick play was bad.
Yeah.
It was not a great officiated game as a whole.
Yeah.
But real quick, back to Gainwell for a second. Is there, and I'm not trying to start any shit here, I promise, but what's going on where Miles Sanders has clearly been relegated today, at least? And the only reason why I bring this up, I understand that a lot of this is week to week and shit happens in a vacuum in the NFL. I understand that. But we had last week where now the entire run game was neglected, but Miles Sanders was a big part of that. Right. This week, Gainwell, now granted, doesn't out-carry him, but he's out-targeted in the passing game. It just feels like if you are going to involve Miles Sanders, it would be across the board, not just in one small area like 6-7 carries that he gets today. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what the offensive identity is with these 2 backs, because I love the promise of Kenny Gainwell on this team. but I also recognize that Miles Sanders is a beast and probably shouldn't be put in like a corner or, driving 55 in a speed car in the fast lane.
But one of the things that I did see in one of the tweets from one of the reporters was talking about the consistency when it comes to Kenny Gainwell catching the ball compared to Miles Sanders. Like we know we have both of those options with Kenny Gainwell. We know that he's going to be able to run the ball, but we also know that he can make those short pass catches if they need him to do, when that's what Jalen Hurts is probably going to prioritize compared to if he has that option with Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, but that makes sense. It's just apparently that was like what they worked on, what Miles Sanders was supposedly working on so much in the offseason. And at one point, I mean, it was coming out that he was catching everything. He wasn't dropping anything, blah, blah. And there was one that he dropped for this season. There was one. I don't remember which game it was in, but he definitely had one hit him in the hands and dropped. Was it week 1? Which is why I don't remember it as much. Was it week 2? I don't know. It definitely did happen. That could be something. It was
against San Fran. I don't think anybody had any problems in Atlanta, and if they did, we just forget it because it was so flawless.
Right. Right. I mean, that's something that I saw on Twitter a little bit today. It's like maybe there's something that we're missing.
Right.
That we just don't know about and we're not seeing in practice and whatnot that the coaches are. But I also just, I don't know. I have trouble believing that the organization is doing right by any player.
I hate to say this, but I agree with your premise, Jess, which is I think the coaches are holding on to something they see that we don't. But then doesn't that beg the question, do we trust the coaches?
Do we trust the coaches? Do we trust the organization? No.
That's a trickle down from the organization. So can you trust?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they may think, hey, sky's red today. Sky's red today. We're the coaches. We're telling you the sky's red today. We're like, whoa. Like, are you sure about that? Can we see? Can we have a conversation about this? We saw Sanders effectively on the ground, and we've seen him effectively on the ground. That's why I just bring it up, because I don't know if there's any real formulated identity with this offense when it comes to the running game. And look, if they want Jalen Hurts to be the leading rusher on this team, that's fine. He's got the capability too. But it just seems like there is such a chunk, and this goes back to, I'm sure, the point that you've been making, which is accurate here about the organization and how little they attend to this. But man, once again, looking at this as a whole and thinking about how heavy they are with the running backs, it kind of raised that question for me. That's all. So I'm more inclined to trust the coaches in certain situations because of what we saw week 1 and how balanced that attack was week 1 and what we saw 100 yards rushing from Miles Sanders week 1. That's what he can do. Why all of a sudden is he just gone? It doesn't make sense to me. I'm so perplexed by it. It just makes no sense. No, it's a conundrum, to say the least. Now, how much fire did we have? Not to the extent of belligerence, but I'm sure that as many positive tweets as you've hit us with so far, I'm sure that there were some people that were upset, to say the least.
Yeah, like I said, most of the frustration was about the 3 touchdowns that were nullified. We already mentioned that. Gannon, everybody saying fire Gannon or some meaner word.
There you go. Fire Gannon already?
Already.
Or some other F words about Gannon.
Yeah.
Not just fire. A few other 4-letter F words.
Yep.
Yeah.
I could see that.
And of course, you got the fire Howie Roseman, which is going to be in there.
Well,
that's
support.
But they're not as bad as last week, because last week we had some really, really bad ones. I haven't seen anything that was just brutal yet.
It's also it's not even 6:00 yet. Everyone still has the rest of their afternoon to like be okay. When the Eagles keep you up until midnight and just lay an egg the way they did last week, do you know how horrible that is just for the rest of your week? Like, you kept me up for this BS and this is what you do? Yeah. That's infuriating.
No, it's brutal. I mean, look, it's like back in the day before you could get everything on demand and burn through everything in one sitting, where you actually had to wait once a week for your favorite show to come on the air, and it's one of these shitty episodes. It's a throwaway episode. And
Yeah.
what? It's 11:30 at night on Sunday night. You're done with this shitty episode, and you're not going to get any sleep, and you're pissed off. And that's what we've got now for the past 2 weeks. It's like at some point, can you break out and give me something memorable here?
Yes.
Brutal.
I have not seen anything that was crazy. First one, Andre Dillard, S. Trash. It was trash. Okay.
Yep.
That's it. That's the worst. That's the worst I have seen today.
On Dillard.
He held his own last week. I was really proud of him for the way he played last week in Dallas. He was not good today.
Yeah.
No, I think they loaded up too. I think Spags recognized, and look, that's probably going to be something moving forward where these guys are going to be exposed as backups the longer they're out there. And we've gone through this last year. That's why there was so much hope in the offseason about, well, if that offensive line stays healthy, you just watch, because we've seen what happens, A, when they're healthy, and B, unfortunately, as they're going through now, that they have moments. And this defense, I think, was a great, perfect matchup for them. Not Carolina, not Dallas last week, not even an aggressive front with Tampa. The fact that you had such a soft defense, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but I that's a great thing. Like, take advantage of that. The fact that they did take advantage of that. Absolutely.
This tweet's my favorite. It says Rich Kotite Jr.
Oh, I didn't even see that one.
That one's like really far at the bottom. My favorite is to scroll all the way to the bottom and click to see the ones that like are hidden for like because they're offensive.
Yeah, I saw hot dumpster broth. That was kind of bad, but that one with the one you have is good.
These are amazing.
It's so bad. Amazing. Why?
Yeah.
165 replies. Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate it getting much better on the road against a team in Carolina who has beat up bad teams? They lose to Dallas.
Oh, okay.
But you know, the thing about it is they're good against bad teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I kind of have a feeling, Rachel and Jess, that the Eagles are a bad team. So that's kind of my concern this week.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to be away like next week, and I'm going to a bachelorette party next weekend.
Yeah.
I'm going to be crawling onto an airplane at 6 a.m. And I'm going to be crawling back up the stairs to my apartment to watch the Eagles play. I really hope that they don't completely ruin my day.
Yeah. But can it be worse than, do you think that game against the Panthers could be worse than this week or last week? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be. I hope it's not worse than this week or last week's performances, putting up 40.
I hope not. I hope not. I don't need another team to hang 40 on us. I don't need 3 in 5 games. No. I don't need it.
Let's just thank the football gods that Christian McCaffrey's not playing in this game. DJ Moore may go off and have his way with this defense, but it's not going to be. Now, what I'm concerned about is the opposite. Real quick, just to kind of end on this note with next week. What I'd be concerned about is that they're taking on a legit defense on the road, and maybe instead of it being a shootout where the Eagles are able to put up a bunch of points and just not keep up, we see more of a 17-7, 17-10 type game with an offense that, granted, shouldn't be that bad as far as putting up points. Like, I think that would be my biggest disappointment, is if Carolina found a way to shut down this offense with so much speed and spacing and ability to score. So that's where I would look at it, equally as disappointing as they were just not being able to keep up with KC and Dallas.
I can see that.
Yeah.
That's all. Any other tweets we want to end on here?
I don't think anything was crazy. Like, that needs to be
nothing with Andy Reid or okay.
That's it. That's all I have.
Misery.
Stop the misery.
Well, look. Hopefully next week we'll have some at least balance. I think this show was more fun than last week because as Jess mentioned, it was late at night and we were all upset. We were all frustrated. It's a divisional rival to get your ass kicked like that. There was a lot to take away. Hopefully the coaching staff is explaining what the teaching moment is and not just telling these guys, oh, no, there's a teaching moment. So the three of us will be back next week. We'll have a lot to talk about. And look, you've got some things to look forward to at the very least when you can build on what we saw on the offense, and hopefully they can get these penalties somewhat in rein. I don't think it's going to change overnight, but hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed here as well. For Rachel, for Jess, I'm Eitan. We'll see you again next week. Have a great one. It's the BGN Instant Reaction Show. Thanks for riding with us.